Hello YouTube, it is your boy B3, back with another kicking, you guessed it my friends, graphic novel review. A while ago, not terribly far ago, really recently actually, we reviewed Jupiter's Legacy Volume 1, which is a comic I've always been a huge fan of. I always thought it was very underrated, but now that it's got that Netflix stuff going on, I'll be reading all of the kind of new re-releases of the trades, which makes me very happy. So we are reviewing Jupiter's Legacy Volume 2 today, which is a very good book, just like all the other volumes. So this actually contains issues of Jupiter's Circle, but they call them all Jupiter's Legacy because I believe that's what the Netflix show is called. Haven't watched the Netflix show, honestly not even sure if it's out yet. Not a big Netflix guy, more of a Hulu fella, but I will be watching this show for sure. For sure. So Volume 2 is written by Mark Millar, who does really good kind of unorthodox superhero work. And Wilfredo Torres was the artist for chapters 1 and 2, pages 10, 12 through 14, 18 through 23, and 6. Chris Spouse did the pencils and breakdowns and stuff. Walden Wong on finishes. A lot of great stuff going on. A lot of different artists. Jupiter's Legacy Volume 2. This is kind of the Netflix edition, by the way. Published by Image Comics, and it collects Jupiter's Circle 2, 1 through 6. Pretty cool stuff, actually. So our first chapter is about kind of our main hero, the Superman of the world, and he kind of lives a perfect life. He's the perfect husband, the perfect hero, the perfect man. He has like no character flaws. And then one of the female superheroes, like, men don't want to seem to date her. I think they're intimidated by her. Remember, the first things kind of take place kind of in the 50s. So the empowered, hardworking woman, especially one with superpowers, can be very intimidating to these men. Well, you know, our big our big story on this is kind of how lonely the superhero life is. Like, you know, they find a transmitter on Titan, which is sending out this signal, but it's millions of years old, and there's this like abandoned city under Titan, you know, which is one of Jupiter's moons. By the way. And also we see some more stuff about aliens and Skyfox. You remember Skyfox, when his girlfriend left him for another member on the team, he kind of accused that team member of using his mind powers on her to make her fall in love with him. And then he kind of, there was a scuffle and he left the team. You know, it was some pretty heavy stuff. And so he's been kind of taking a journey around the world, realizing what a jerk he was, realizing how entitled he was, kind of becoming a hippie freedom fighter-y guy. Goes a little terroristy, but does it with a good heart. Our Flare joins the team again. It took 5 years of recovery. This is kind of more in the 60s now, as I said. It takes him many years of recovery to get back on top. And he still does physical therapy. Skyfox puts his costume on, goes and helps rioters in the city and stuff. But here's the thing. So, like, in this book, there's a lot of political stuff that goes on in the Jupiter's Circle, Jupiter's Legacy books, and in this book, there's like really two sides. There's what Skyfox is doing, and eventually they end up calling him a supervillain, the greatest supervillain of all time. And then there's what the Union are doing, and both sides are kind of right, but also going about things in ways that aren't perfect, but nobody is perfect. And that's kind of what it's saying. Like, even though these are superhumans, they're still humans. Human is the operative word. They are, you know, there's problems. Like, Skyfox obviously does go too far. He, like, kidnaps the vice president and threatens to give him to the Viet Cong if they don't pull out of Vietnam. Which is, like, obviously going way too far. Wanting to get out of Vietnam? Yeah, that's a good thing, right? Kidnapping the vice president, obviously, that's terrorism. Of course, right? That's, of course, horrible. And then there's like this Lex Luthor esque character called Hobbs, and he makes a device that steals powers and then gives those powers to him and his goons. He's eventually defeated by Skyfox after he defeats all the other ones, like the Utopian, which is their Superman and stuff. He defeats all of them pretty publicly, and he gets thrown in prison for it by Skyfox, who designed the super prison. And Skyfox is kind of like, hey, I guess they're like, we kind of forgive you and we're going to rejoin the team. But his kind of rival, who was always at the end of his pranks and at the other end of his pranks and stuff, Skyfox apologizes to him and he's like, I was a jerk. I can't believe that I was so, obsessed with myself that I thought she left me because you used your mind powers on her and not because I was just a dick. And he was like, you're right, you were a dick, but I did use my mind powers on her. Which is, of course, that's effectively rape, right? Using your psychic powers to make someone fall for you and have sex with you, that's rape. That's just 100% rape. And Skyfox, of course, goes ballistic on him. No one else hears it, despite super hearing. But the thing about super hearing is it's honed. Like, you gotta pick and choose where to use it, or you'll just hear everything on the planet, and it's overwhelming and you can't make anything out. So no one else heard it. There's a big battle, and then he kind of just becomes, after that, that's his full fall to quote-unquote super villainy. Even though he's probably a better person than most people on the team, especially the sidekick one, who they've kind of been setting up to just be a villain. And then the Utopian, he starts trying to do more. He has this talk with Ayn Rand, who's kind of an asshole, and responsible for Ben Shapiro. But, there's this billionaire who's like, I'll give half my fortune, $2 billion to charity, if you give me some super sperm to impregnate my wife so that I can have a super-powered child. And the Utopian is like, is that ethical? Is it ethical to turn it down? Is it ethical to say yes? He's having this big conflict with it. And he actually goes to Hobbs, that world's kind of Lex Luthor, and they become best friends. He reveals his secret identity to him, tells him his weaknesses and how to defeat him, and Hobbs is like, wow. What? Wow. And they become best friends, and then Hobbs starts using his super genius to really help the planet. The Utopian basically gives away his fortune, flies around the world giving Christmas gifts to every kid on the planet, and then he's doing all this amazing stuff, and he tells his wife he wants to do it, and she's like, I want a divorce. And you as the reader, you're like, what? She has, like, the perfect life, and that's why she wants a divorce. She feels like a horrible person around him because he's so perfect in basically every way. And he struggles with how to do the most good and stuff. Like, he has his own demons and etc. But they're like demons that only a pure person would have, ironically enough. And she's like, I can't make any mistakes around you. I'm constantly comparing myself to you, and it makes me feel like garbage. And it's like, you're reading her reasoning, and you're like, you know what? She's got a point. That's really fair. You know? That's really fair. She doesn't want to date someone perfect because it makes her feel like garbage in comparison. And it's like, those are pretty valid feelings. And, God, this is such a well-written book. Just insanely well-written. Wild. So he basically gives his fortune away. And then, of course, he and the lonely superheroine end up actually getting together because they both start to feel the loneliness of the superhero life, and they actually fit with each other very well. They get married and have kids eventually. Skyfox escapes prison because he built the prison, so he gets out of it pretty easily and is, I think, the only person to ever really escape it at that point. But yeah, and that kind of ends Jupiter's Circle 2, which is Jupiter's Legacy Volume 2 from, like, the Netflix edition books. Very good book. I've read all four. Not sure which one my favorite is. The first one I read back in the day was Jupiter's Legacy. I read that years ago. Back when they released that 3-in-1 issue, you know, is when I read that back forever ago. But I will be reading those next because I do have volumes 3 and 4. Hopefully we'll get volume 5 at some point. It is set up and announced in the back of the book and stuff. Can't wait for that. But I will be reviewing Jupiter's Legacy Volume 3 very soon. But Volume 2 is so good. It's written so well. Because when I was reading Volume 1, I was like, that guy's, you know, our psychic superhero. He's an asshole, but he's not like a rapist. But then he turns out he is. What do you know? And like, that was kind of a big reveal. And Skyfox going terrorist was very interesting, and the Utopian struggling with how to do the most good and be ethical while doing it at the same time. The loneliness of the superhero life. All these issues are just a lot of things you don't think about with superheroes. And it's a very, very interesting book. Jupiter's Circle, and Jupiter's Legacy, and etc. You know, it's one of my favorite comic worlds of all time. Thank you so much, Image and Mark Miller, for giving us these books. They got great art, fantastic writing, and I could just read them all day, every day. So that's it. Thank you all very much for your support. Remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. Check out all the cool links in the description below, Facebook, Twitter, etc. And I'll see you all next time.